This is Learning to Dad.
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
With Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm going to have fun, and you're going to have fun.
Been on a podcast before?
I've been in about 150 of them, so yeah.
Have you really? No kidding.
Yeah,
So
through podcast guests, I think in the last 2 years, I've been in 120. I have my own podcast as well. That's actually tonight, but I focus on kind of corporate culture and kind of getting hired. So I interview leaders that have teams and kind of what they do to build a corporate culture and everything like that. So, yeah.
Great. What's the name of your podcast?
It's on a platform called USA Global TV and Radio, and it's called The Resume Whisperer.
Oh, The Resume Whisperer.
Yeah,
And,
that's one. I call myself a resume whisperer and a corporate culturist. Those are my two kind of headings.
The culture is so important to me. In my company, I feel like it's what maintains retention and brings more people in, because there's 1,000 people that do what I do, but to keep them here is a challenge. You got to stand out in one way or another. To anyone listening, I'm talking to Josef Stetter. I pronounced Stetter correctly?
Yes.
Awesome. And on your little sheet here, you're the resume whisperer. You've helped over 10,000, 11,000 people land their dream job like rapidly, and you've got 2 kids on the ground and maybe more in the future. And I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks a ton for making time for me today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks. Tell me about the value of the podcast that you've created. Is it kind of from a business perspective for you?
So the value of the podcast is more to be of service for people. So I kind of have 2 types of shows. One is kind of helping the individual job seeker, whether they're a new graduate, they've been downsized, transitioning from military to the private sector, and anything in between, and kind of the do's and don'ts of, what it takes to land a great job. And land it quickly. And then the other side of it is, as a corporate culturist, is talking about, what is culture, and then also talking about how to engage employees, because sadly 80 to 90% of people in North America hate their job, and turnover is costing over $1 trillion a year right now in North America. So I kind of have people from different industries come in and talk about what they do, let's say in an accounting firm, what a banking company does, what this, and just kind of like, first of all, what they did to become leaders, and then as leaders, what they do to engage and kind of try to maintain their staff. And so it's also kind of a free-flowing conversation, but the idea is, okay, what do you look for when you interview people? What do you look for when you're building the team? What do you look for when you're kind of trying to define? And many times it's like, have you defined which culture you want? There's 8 main types of cultures that a business can have. And then so you can be 2 of them, but don't just preach it. Make sure that you actually practice it. The problem is that there's a lot of lip service out there, but not actual there. So for example, a friend of mine just got hired at a bank, and when she was being interviewed for the bank, they showed her this beautiful state-of-the-art yoga room. She was all excited, like, okay, they get it. They get mental health and well-being. She got hired, and there's no yoga instructor. There's no incentive for any of the employees to actually do a yoga program there, even an extra 15 minutes at lunch. And so it's basically this beautiful state-of-the-art room that's empty, right? And so I talk a lot about, are you preaching it or are you actually doing it, kind of thing. And so what does that mean? So I'll use the example as part of culture. Like I'm a big kid at heart. One of my favorite holidays is Halloween. If you have an executive that has meetings all day, even if they go to the dollar store and buy a mask, wear it for 15, 20 minutes, go around, shake hands of people that, took the time to dress up, acknowledge them, take a few pictures, take your mask off, go do your meeting. But if you don't do that, that's where, it's lip service versus actual action. And that's where you have such a high level of disengagement in the workforce and kind of not believing in your leadership. Like, of the top 10 reasons why somebody leaves a job, salary is actually number 7, right? How you're treated, the lack of clear communication and kind of strategy, and the lack of opportunity to share ideas is the top three kind of thing. So, the conversations overlaps there regularly.
That all makes a lot of sense to me, especially as I talk to more and more business people about money is rarely like a topic of conversation. We all want to make enough to feel secure and support the people we love and take care of ourselves and our future. But at the end of the day, none of us die and bring it with us. We want to have other things we're thinking about as we're reverse
Well, again,
engineering our
we're
life
also
on our deathbed.
human beings are creatures of habit. So when I worked in the banking system and I became a recruiter, I called 37 people that every day complained to me how much they hate working for the bank, how miserable they are. And because they were licensed, I came and said, look, E-Trade is one of my first clients as a recruiter. Because I know you, because you're licensed, come in, shake hands. And literally, because I know you do shift work, if you work from 9 to 5, I'll schedule at 8 o'clock at night. If you're working from 11 to 8, I'll schedule at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you don't miss a single hour of work. Care to guess out of 37. And basically I was offering them double their income from like a $10,000 raise, $20,000 more in bonus incentives and better benefits. Care to guess out of 37 how many actually went?
You gotta tell me.
One. Right? And then I got
the
excuses
incentive
like
for
I got used to taking a nap on the way home from work. I'm like, a nap is worth more than a $40,000 raise for you. Or what if I get the shift that I don't like? Again, the shift is worth more than the raise for you. Or, well, what if I get fired? But you're doing the exact same thing with the exact same software, with the exact same tools. Why would you get fired? It's if you've ever read Spencer Johnson's Who Moved My Cheese, it's the hem and haw mindset of, okay, I have a routine here. I know my routine. But yet they're complaining every day that they're miserable and they hate their job. And so even when opportunities are presented on a silver platter, most people need a good kick in the behind, pardon my language, to do that. Like even my wife, when we were dating, my wife worked as a behavior therapist. And she needed 97% on her evaluation, and she'd been there for a few years, and she got 96. And the owner fired her and was like, "I'm firing you," right? And the 1% was semantics. It wasn't even like major like mistake. It was like her binder wasn't 100% the way that the owner wants it. And my wife cried about it for a couple of days, and then I reminded her that she's dating one of the top 10 career coaches in North America, and she agreed. I wrote her resume. She sent out 7 resumes on Sunday afternoon. On Monday, 3 different companies called her, set up an interview for Tuesday, and on Tuesday she had 3 job offers for more money. And it was just literally 2 days later. But if it wasn't for her being fired, she would have never tried to move forward or try to get something better. And unfortunately, the majority of people are in that mindset as a whole.
So was she already uncomfortable, and so this, and just never made the move and just
She was uncomfortable because, for example, with her, if one of her, they call them clients, let's say, didn't show up, let's say, and it was a bracket from 12 to 4, she wasn't allowed to leave the office, and she wasn't getting paid for it. She was forced to work on weekends, and so like she was already miserable, but leaving scared her because there's that expression in English, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Mm-hmm. So that kind of created a little bit of a hesitation, but unfortunately majority of people that I speak to are in that mindset where it's like, but I already know this. I've been here. I know the people. I know there. If I may share kind of one of my craziest stories of recruiting, I had a guy that was a financial controller for a company that does blank CDs and DVDs. He was making $65,000 a year with a $20,000 bonus. For 5 years, his employers refused to give him a raise because they said that the company's not making enough money. I sent him, and this is going back to approximately 2006, I sent him to a company that does custom surround sounds for houses that in Toronto area, Canada, are $2 million plus. We're talking like state-of-the-art sound systems in the wall where there's no wire. This is before everything was digital and you can kind of touch on your phone or on a tablet. This was like the high end. Anyways, my client loved him, was like, how much is he making? I told him. He goes, okay, I'll give him a base of $85,000, $25,000 bonus to come work for me. Told the candidate the good news. The candidate submitted his resignation. Within a half hour, his boss came in and was like, I'm not letting you leave. You're too important for this company. What they offer you. He told them. He's like, okay, give me a little bit of time. He came back. He's like, okay, we'll give you a base of $120,000, $30,000 to stay here. It's $30,000 bonus to stay here. Now, 5 years, they didn't give him a raise, right? So called my client, told him what happened. My client's like, okay, this guy's really special. I really love him. What they offer him? I told him. He goes, okay, I'll give him a base of $160,000, $40,000 bonus to come work for me.
Wow.
The candidate resigned again. The entire leadership team of the company that he's working at came in, was like, you're not allowed to leave. You're the only one that knows the finances here. What they offer you? He told them. They came back, said, okay, we'll give you a base of $200,000 to stay put and a 2% ownership in a company. You'll make about $250 a year. I was like, jeez. Called my client. My client's like, okay, there's something really, really special about this guy. I'm going to make him my right-hand man. I'm going to give him a base of $265,000 and 9% ownership in my company. In his worst year, he'll make $500,000. If he doesn't take this, and he doesn't see how much I want this guy, this is 3 offers before he's even worked a day for me, like, he's an idiot. I called the candidate. I'm like, look, this company for 5 years nickel and dimed you. If they're going to offer you more money, do you think you're going to be treated better or worse? Like, you need to take this guy's serious. He's offering you 9% ownership. You know, that resulted in a $430,000 raise in 4.5 hours. Most stressful negotiation of my life. But the point is, when you're really good and you create that value where companies all of a sudden go, oh my God, then you'll get paid what you're worth, kind of thing.
So at what point in your career did you, I imagine you didn't start in recruitment and you didn't start as the resume whisperer. You started doing something else and transitioned to gain this experience that made you
I've
move
switched
forward.
careers 9 times and jobs 18 times. I started my career in finance because my parents wanted me to have a good career, something that, you know, they can be proud of to tell everybody else about. And I was kind of in a position where I worked in finance for 7 years and I was miserable. So I, you know, switch careers because I figured out there. Really, I became the resume whisperer. I started doing self-development courses like Tony Robbins, like the Walk of Fire and things like that. And after doing some of these powerful exercises, I'm like, why is nobody applying this to job finding? Why is nobody applying some of these principles to job finding? And then I started volunteering in like government agencies and kind of giving lectures and coaching. And I would do large groups. And all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, you gave me this one tip and I got hired. Like I had, you know, there, and slowly but surely kind of built. And, you know, instead of calling myself a career coach and sounding like everybody else, I was like, ooh, resume whisperer. It's, you know, it's unique. And the same thing with corporate culturist. Like I've been in recruiting for 20 years, but now I offer services way beyond recruiting, such as assessments to know kind of the employees and to know how to communicate with them, to know how to engage them, to know how to minimize turnover. Because I can say, like, for example, Tyler, if you like learning, rather than giving you the standard $5,000 raise, what if I gave you a $2,000 raise, but I paid for courses for you to, whether it's self-development or professional courses, so that you're more engaged. You know, if this person likes, you know, so I'll give an example where very common. I often speak to executives and they have a personal assistant or an executive assistant. I said, instead of giving them, let's say, a $3,000 bonus for a job really well done, which I'm sure the money can help, right? Pay their full day of salary and send them to the spa. Because for many like assistants, the spa is a luxury. So if they go and they get a massage, they get a manicure and a pedicure, you know, it's going to cost you $500 for a good place, plus their whatever their salaries, which is still cheaper than the $3,000 bonus. But because you actually cared about their well-being, they'll probably be a lot more productive. And most executives don't think like that. You know, I'm always amused at the end of the show, Undercover Boss, where the executives go, oh my God, I should speak to the people that work here. I might get some insights. You think? Kind of thing. But we've become so far removed from it that it's like, okay, how can we automate? How can we make this number better? And a lot of times the executives forget that, you know, it's not what the Excel spreadsheet says in the ivory tower. It's the human factor. You know, people need that water cooler conversation. So even though you have a hybrid work model now, I think the statistics say that 54% of people that work from home miss that water cooler conversation, miss that opportunity to feel like they belong, where it's not just the meetings that they have to do and part of the, you know, the work, but it's there. So, you know, part of me being a corporate culturist is to also give them ideas on how you can engage people that are remote, but get them to feel like they're still in the office, you know. So something as simple as do a Zoom lunch and learn, or a Zoom lunch together where you're just talking, but it's not business talk, it's just regular talk. Do trivia nights and have people kind of dial in so that they're participating. If you're organizing an event like a hike, have a few people recording it and feed it to the intranet of the company so that those that can't attend be like, oh yeah, and this is cool and whatever, and just have that experience. So a lot of what I do is not only explain this to leadership, but also help them implement it, and help them implement it in a way that, from no budget to Google budget, there's a lot of things in between. So I always give the example of paint night. You can go to the typical franchise where everybody paints the same tree, or I can bring an internationally renowned artist to your office to create a one-of-a-kind event for your employees, which will probably end up costing you the same thing, but it's customized for your employees so they have an experience that they'll never forget, and that creates better engagements overall.
Yeah, I think people fail to appreciate the differences between the humans within their company, and you remind me of the book talking what you're saying of the languages of love, understanding the way people receive appreciation through gifts or words or validation or whatever. And with that kind of in mind, and you being a corporate culturist, do you have a matching system in terms of matching the type of corporate culture that you're looking for particular employees looking for a job?
Yes. So there is I use several personality and psychometric assessments to kind of gauge, because as much as many of them like DISC are phenomenal and they give you certain background data, it's still skewed from one's perspective. So if you kind of match it against another, you can kind of start getting patterns of behavior, patterns of this is what's more important. So, in that there's ways of kind of, as I mentioned earlier, there's 8 main types of culture. So you have Zappos, which is all fun and playful, and then you have an accounting firm or a lawyer firm, which is very almost military, billable hours. And it's okay to be that, but as long as everybody that goes in knows that that's the environment, you can structure so that as new hires come in, as people get promoted, these are the levels of expectation, this is the level of communication. But this goes again to, the difference between lip service in terms of, we do this, we have a corporate culture, versus actually doing the culture, right? So I have a 300-page manual that says, here's kind of, what you can do, and if you need help, I can help you implement some of this. So I can help you create events that are, unique and memorable if you don't have the infrastructure right now at your company to kind of do it yourself, for example. But in the same respect, it's also educating, let's say, leadership that, right now you have 5 generations working together. There's different communication style for each one of them. Not everybody wants to be the CEO. Not everybody wants that growth. Some people are perfectly happy. Let's say, I'm going to use engineers. A lot of times engineers, when they get promoted, feel like they've been punished because they love doing their technical, but forgive me for saying, but most engineers aren't known for their bubbly personality kind of thing, right? So they like doing the engineering, and a lot of times they lack the leadership skills, or they lack the communication skills. And so part of what I do is help map out so that executive go, we really like this engineer. Let's start training him in communication or presentation skills before we actually promote them, so that, whether it's done internally through mentoring, whether it's done through something like Toastmasters, which teaches you the art of public speaking, or industry designations, doesn't matter to me. And with what I'm doing right now, I have my CTO just built the learning management system for Intel. He also did the learning management system for the Department of Defense. So there's a level where, we can build you a training platform within building the culture, because we can recognize the different types of learners. We can recognize, the different types of needs. So if you're the type of guy that can do online courses and you can listen to the video and you learn it, fantastic. If you are the type of person that likes to write notes, we can kind of embed that. But the biggest problem is kind of, first of all, leadership buy-in from it. And then after the leadership buy-in, to actually start implementing phases of, here's how we are going to take care of our people. So first part is, and I'm going to steal from Guy Kawasaki, who was the evangelist for Apple back in the day. He says, leadership often goes to, a 3-4 day resort to come up with a mission and vision statement. He goes, if you go to, let's say, Burger King and ask the manager at Burger King, what is the mission and vision of Burger King? Unless there's a plaque right in front of them, they have no idea, probably. But if you create a mantra, like a 3 or 4 words, Nike, just do it, and then you show that your leadership is doing that, or they're practicing it in a way. So it doesn't have to be, just do it. It could be like fun. So if you're going to say that your company is fun, what is your leadership doing that represents fun? What can the employees see or experience that is fun? Like you're buying ice cream in the summer, you're buying smiley face balloons and putting it on kind of every cubicle, you're, funny stress balls. So there's, and those are relatively inexpensive relative to large corporations' budget, for example, right? But those are things that create fun. If there is a sports team, like a soccer team and a softball team and whatever kind of there, then there's a level of you can have fun outside of work, and it's part of the culture because people know that that's part of the experience. It's not enough to say we have fun. So any word that you use, it's a level of, again, is there consistency from entry level all the way to the C-level executives that there's actions being taken consistently. And so part of what I do as a corporate culturist is to go, okay, if this is who you think you are, and again, I have the assessments to kind of tell you exactly who you are, here's how things need to change. Here's the communication. Here's there. And it's a level where it's not one person, because I can also hone in and say, let's say this director here, their communication style doesn't match your cultural identity. So they might be brilliant with coming up with strategies, but they're horrible at talking to people. So maybe let them do just the strategy, but then hire somebody else that will engage the employees and communicate it, right? And so then you're letting people shine in their genius rather than giving you, like I can do accounting. I don't enjoy it. That's why I pay a good accountant to do it for me. And so, even the Excel spreadsheets, I have people that will do the Excel spreadsheets with here's categories, and good accountant that can kind of go, okay, here's how we can defer taxes. Here's the same thing with the lawyer. Like, I'm fascinated by law, but I hire good lawyers because they know the nuances of the languages, for example. So it's no different. And part of what I teach companies is, you can have two people doing the same job, but one does strategy, one does the communication or the actual team, right? And so they're both shining because they're doing what they like, what they want.
I can't get my head the idea out of my head of the engineer being elevated to another position, and it made me think of the Peter Principle. Are you familiar with that by name? Yeah. Do you have any examples or stories or kind of opinions on the Peter Principle, and you're seeing it throughout these different companies you're working with? Or maybe explain to people what it is.
So again, it's a level of like, I will say it in a very simple analogy. As a CEO of a company, you should never be the smartest man in the room. You should surround yourself with people that know what they know. So, you hire good, let's say, marketers because they understand the algorithm. You hire good people. And so if you allow people to kind of work in their realm of, I get excited to do this, right? Everybody will be more productive, kind of thing. And so there is a level where, again, so I'll use like big company, Tata Consulting Services, which is a division of Tata. It's a company out of India that has almost 300,000 employees globally. And in Canada, they had 1,500 people or so working for them. And they were trying to manage their software developers, their project managers, the same way that they manage them in India. And I was like, that's not going to work. There's significant cultural differences. You have to understand people here that are at that level won't tolerate, you need to work all weekend kind of thing. You need to do this. So one of the biggest issues was that the project manager, I was recruiting for them for a project where they were redoing one of the mortgage softwares for one of the biggest banks in Canada, which was a $50 million project. But every decision had to be approved in India. And so the project manager was sitting there for 2-3 weeks not being able to do anything because he was waiting for approval. So I literally went to like the VP of operations, was like, you need to have somebody here in Canada that can, let's say, approve anything up to $1 million in a matter of like hours, not wait for India, because you're going to lose this $50 million contract. Now, after I did this, they actually hired me to help them write their employee retention manual for Canada, which kind of said, here are things that you need to understand about kind of, even though they had a brilliant HR manager director kind of thing, but because there was 1,500 people, there was people coming in from India, there was so many other things to deal with, they, I'll use the word outsource it to me to kind of go, can you help us define certain things and certain parameters and understand what can or cannot be done? And so companies that understand that, will grow much faster. The only two that can get away with it, and there's been a few movies, one called Too Big to Fail, is the banking industry and the insurance industry, because, as the movie says, and this is what happened in the 2008 kind of crash, where the government bailed them out twice. The first time they bailed out, all the CEOs went, well, we work really hard. We deserve like a $60 million bonus for our hard work. And then within 3 months, the money was gone. And so they had to go back to the government and say, oopsie, we're sorry. And this is when the government forced banks like JP and Morgan Chase to join together to minimize the risk and minimize the bad debt and so forth. But, companies are like, I had a former client engineering firm, ironically enough, that does a lot of structural engineering, where the owner is 80 years old school businessman around for 27 years. And he was looking for a structural engineer with 5 years of experience minimum, but he's offering $40,000, $50,000 below market. When I told him that candidates were laughing at me at the salary, and I was like, here's their name, here's their phone number, here's their email, here's statistics that says you're paying way below market, his mindset was, they should be thankful that they have a job or that they're getting a job. And ironically enough, his son also works there as an engineer. And the son told me they've lost $1.5 million in contracts because they can't handle the volume of work that they have. And so this, narrow mindset of, I'm only going to pay you this much and I'm not budging on it there. And by miracle, I found 2 people that quit within a month, and both said the same thing to me, how bad the culture is, that he forced them to do 40 hours of overtime when they resigned, all billable hours. And I'm like, I don't run a charity. Like, my contract says I'll replace free of charge, but you also have to understand, like, one of the engineers actually said, by the time I calculate my rent, my expenses, there's $500 left for my family. I cannot take care of my family on $500 a month, basically, right? And this is also around the time of pandemic where prices skyrocketed like crazy. So there's a level of, you need to understand that, again, taking care of your people is not just paying them more money. It's recognizing that, if you're expecting somebody to work 80 to 100 hours a week, they're going to burn out. If you're yelling and screaming at them all the time, they're not going to care. If they feel that they're doing a lot of this work and they're not getting credit, they're not getting any recognition, they'll do enough not to get fired, but not enough that they care, kind of thing. So this is a conversation that now is shifting, and because of the pandemic, we have a hybrid workforce. We have this where companies are realizing we can't have the same model. And so the ones that are incorporating the changes properly are doing well. The ones that are not, they'll fall out. It's the same thing with what's going on right now with this craze of attaching the word AI to everything that you do. There's AI and there's AI. There's AIs that if they don't set the right parameters, my CTO loves giving this example. If you tell ChatGPT, have 3 chats, the first says, you're Socrates, right? The second says you're Machiavelli. And the third one says, don't put any parameters. And then tell each chat that you now need to let go of 20% of your workforce, right? So Socrates will give you ethical solutions on how to try and deal with it and how to solve the problem. Machiavelli will give you ideas on how to kill them in their sleep without getting caught. And if you don't put any parameters, basically Microsoft and OpenAI control the data points that you have. So companies that are just going, well, we're just dumping data into OpenAI or into the Microsoft version. I forget what it's called, and they don't put the right parameters or foundation of the data. If, let's say, the ethical standards of data changes, those companies that don't put parameters will collapse, right? And so what's happening now, even with AI, is, everybody's AI. Everybody is kind of thing. And again, it's like, what parameters are you putting for AI? How are you defining it? And so, a lot of companies are saying that they have AI because they can do this or they can do this. But some of this AI, again, when you start digging in and asking a little, again, I'm not a techie guy, but because, let's say, I've been in recruiting for 20 years, I've invested 30,000 hours to learn that. Like, you have a lot of techies that are trying to come up with recruiting tools to fix the cog, but they don't actually understand anything about recruiting. They've never dealt with it. So they look and go, oh, this is inefficient. So, like, gamifying presentations. And I'm like, how are you measuring if it's a good presentation? Because, like, I've been in Toastmasters where they teach you about the filler words, and, like, but, and, yeah, and so forth, that many people speak. So someone that has a lot of filler words, to me, again, they might be geniuses in, let's say, marketing ideas, but very bad presenters because of the earns and a lot of the filler words. So my listening is very different. Now, if somebody's giving me a technical presentation about a subject that they know quite a bit about, they might be an expert, but that doesn't mean that it's a good presentation, for example, because there's a variance in it. So they're like, oh yeah, but your coworkers are going to measure you. I'm like, okay, but how are you measuring that it's a good presentation or not? How is that tying into the HRIS system so that someone that does great presentation can get promoted? They're like, it doesn't. It's just there's a kind of gold star. And I'm like, it's a waste of time. Okay, a lot of these, like, oh, we're going to fix the resume. I'm like, okay, but what if the resume is bad? And what if the LinkedIn profile is bad? How are you adjusting to that? So a lot of these techies that are coming up with, oh, this is an AI solution, we're just going to dump data here. They're taking broken and irrelevant data and making an AI platform that is limited because it's broken and bad data.
So let's talk about presentation, but in the sense of like presenting yourself to earn a new position or job. Do you have any like super broad advice for people that are presenting a resume or going into a job interview as they go into it?
So I'm going to say a few things. Number one, I hate cookie cutter. So stop doing the black and white. If you watch the movie Legally Blonde, when Elle Woods or Reese Witherspoon applies for Harvard and then for the internship, it's a pink scented resume. And everyone looks and goes, it's pink and it's scented, but they remember it. So I'm not saying the pink scented resume, but, change a little bit. Like if you go to insert text box in Microsoft Word, you can kind of get a little bit of formatting, add a little bit of color, even if it's just to your headings to break the eyes from black and white. I'd say that the biggest mistake that most people make in their resume is that it's generic, like I know how to do this or I have experience in this, right? I always like to give these two examples because most people laugh at the first one, but they understand the second one. If someone is applying to be a receptionist somewhere, and they come into an employer and say, I know how to answer the phone, I hope the employer looks at them in shock, goes, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that, because unless they live in an igloo, a cave, or practice the faith of Mennonite, my 4-year-old daughter, in fact, my 21-month-old son, can press the green button, go, hello, how can I help? Hello, kind of thing, right? So, but if a receptionist says, in my last job, I answered 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure I know how to answer the phone. Right. So most people don't quantify how good they are. And similarly, like if I use it from my own background, I can tell you, Tyler, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've worked retail. I've done door to door. I've done car sales. I've worked in private education. I've worked in recruiting. Those words are very important for the algorithm of Indeed and LinkedIn and some of the other platforms that exist. But just because I've told you that I've worked doesn't mean that I know how to sell. But if I give you a real example, say I worked for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 in sales for the year. In 1 month, I was able to generate $860,000 for them. Right. Usually that goes, wow. And then the follow-up question is how? And as long as I can explain the how, I've proven to you that I know how to sell. Right. So on the resume, have some personality. Even in your interview, focus on whether it's a star, situation, task, action, result, the PAR or CAR, problem or action result. Like it doesn't matter what acronym you use, but here's the problem you addressed. Here's how you kind of approach solving it. Here's the results you produce with significant results. That's very, very important. The other thing for networking, a lot of people go to networking with the intention of collecting cards. And they don't know, so I don't know if you're noticing, but I wear a purple shirt. If you look at any of my material online, there's purple. So when I go to a networking event, I'm the guy in purple. So even if you don't remember my name, I'm the guy in purple. So for guys, it could be a particular color shirt, it could be a fedora, it could be a particular tie, but don't do the power tie, like the red, or do something that's memorable, do something that's different. If you're more creative with your shoes, fair kind of thing. For women, there's a lot more choices because it's the way you do your hair, it's earrings, it's a brooch, it's this, but have a signature that people can remember you. Even your watch, if it's a unique watch or your favorite watch, it's a conversation starter. Beyond that, again, most people don't hire you, again, unless you're a brain surgeon and they don't really care about your personality, because as a surgeon, if you're that good as a surgeon, they don't care about your personality. But most hires are the soft skill. Most hires are the personality. So make sure that, you're not high, but you're energized, you're excited, you're happy to talk to be there, do a little bit of due diligence, that you know what the company is, know who the person that you're interviewing you, because they'll ask you, what do you know about our company? Nothing. Thank you, bye-bye, kind of thing, right? So it should be common sense, but as a society, we seem to be very far removed from common sense.
What's one of the more unusual interview questions you've heard asked?
So I actually purposely ask unusual interview questions, but because I've spent 30,000 hours, with the exception of a few Googlers, or for example, I'll ask people, if I were to ask one of your close friends to describe you in 3 or 4 words, as if they're setting you up on a date, how would they describe you? Now, what's interesting about that question is I shut up after I asked the question. I've had people rationalize which friend will set them up on a date. Like, John thinks I'm crazy, so not John, but Bob will say. So the moment they say John thinks I'm crazy, I'm like, okay, duly noted, you're crazy. Now, the other thing is, some people that think that they're okay, they're trying to give the right business answer. So they'll be like, I'm outgoing, I'm energetic, and I'm bubbly. No, you're not, because your physiology doesn't match what you're saying, for example, right? And if you tell me that you're a hardworking, dedicated, committed team player for a date, worst date in history kind of thing. But, so that's an example. So I love to ask questions like, what are you most proud of in your job? If you can't quantify what you're proud of, you're not a good candidate. You're not impressing me. You're not getting the job kind of thing. And this is where most people fail, because we've been programmed to kind of go, oh, I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills. In 20 years of recruiting, I've met very few people that say, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of them are really good, and I really hate people, please hire me. Not unless you're related to them or having an affair with them, that you might get away with that. But we need to change that formula of cookie cutter questions. Even tell me about this job. Oh, I was team member, I'm hardworking. No, the question needs to be what is your biggest achievement in this job? What is that? Because when you talk about your achievement, you'll have a very different energy than tell me about this job. So even the questions need to change, for example, right? But understand that questions that appear unusual, they're not unusual. They're designed to see your values. And I do a lot of interviews where I ask questions that people are like, I've never heard this question. You've kind of surprised me. Why? Because I want to see their reaction. I want to see that they're being authentic in who they are. And, it's not the cookie cutter responder. As part of becoming a resume whisperer, I used to go on interviews that I have 0 qualifications for. So as an example, quickly, my brother finished his 3rd year mechanical engineer, applied for an internship. By the time one of the companies responded to him, he already registered for his 4th year classes, and it was going to be more of a paper pusher job than an engineering job. So he asked me to cancel the interview. I decided to go in as my brother. I studied economics and business. The only thing I know about engineering is what I wrote for him on his resume. My first interview, there was 100 students from 4 major universities. Within 45 minutes, human resource called me back, said, we love you. We need to come back for a second interview. I was like, all right, let's see how far I can take this. My second interview was with the manager of the department that I potentially work with. Now, I spoke the truth about my brother's resume. My brother was on a team that designed a wheelchair for third world nations that used a tank chain so it can go on any train. Came second in Ontario for the best mechanical engineering project of the year, won $500 from a major bank, told the manager I studied thermodynamics and quantum physics. To this day, I have no idea what those are. Didn't even leave the parking lot. Manager called me back, said, I adore you. I need to come back for a third and final interview. Out of 100 candidates, I made it to the final 3. I was the first one in at 8:30 in the morning. Manager walked over to me and goes, here's your offer letter. The job's yours. All you have to do is pass this mechanical engineering test. I looked at him, I looked at the test, I looked at him, I looked at the test. I'm like, I can't do this test. Manager looked at me and goes, I know you're nervous. Let me help you. He solved the first 2 questions for me.
Yeah.
I looked at him, I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. I guess I'm a lot more comfortable with the design than I am with the calculations. I am not the right candidate for this job. Thank you for the opportunity. Manager followed me to the car and begged me to take the job because it interviewed that much better than every other mechanical engineer. Right, and I've done this for law jobs, for accounting jobs, for IT jobs, because I want to make sure that what I teach people works. Right, and if they follow the formula, they shouldn't have a problem.
It sounds like the beginnings of a movie, book, or reality TV show or something. You know,
I've written 10, 11 books, so those stories are in the books too, yes.
Where can people find your books?
On Amazon, they're the books. I just type my name, Josef Stetter, and there's books there, and a few Smash Words. It's another platform that I'm on, so forth. So, yep.
Cool. So, since we're kind of backing into our time here, I want to jump into I'm going to segue hard into the parenting aspect of this conversation. I'd love to know how having kids has informed your work and changed your perspective on things.
So, for example, the weekends I don't go on the computer because it's my kid time. Like, right now they're both in daycare. So, they're in daycare till 4:30, 5 o'clock. We pick them up. Then from 5 to 7:30, it's the feed them kind of night routine, get them to bed. And then as soon as they go back to bed, go back to the business if I need to make phone calls and so forth. But, my kids are my why. My kids are the reason that, I'm doing more and kind of building more to give them the opportunity to pursue whatever they're excited about it. I have a mindset that if my daughter, let's say, wants to be a dancer, to be in a position to pay for the world champions, to train her, to get to open doors for her to create that, right? And not like, I was raised very like, go get a university degree, go with it. No, like, find out who you are, find out your passion. I want to support that, and because I love business, because this, and I read like, One Direction sold 1 billion records, but they were so eager to become musicians that they didn't read their contract properly. So the band made, I think, $350 million from 1 billion record sales. All right. So 5 members, each one made $70-80 million. Simon Cowell, that produced them, made $1 billion because in the contract was that this is why artists like Jay-Z, P. Diddy, 50 Cent kind of went, I want to produce the music, I want to own the label rather than that. So if my kids say, I want to be in the music industry, it's going to be $300,000 for them to record a good studio, but then I want to open a label in their name so that they get the rights, and if there's friends or people that they hear and they're going, oh, you're a great musician, put them under their label, and then they build that generational wealth down the road. So for me, my kids are my why. They're bigger than me. They're giving them the opportunity to explore, to experience things in the world. That's part of it.
So as you're preparing your kids for the world, they're very young, almost 2 and 3, 4 years old. What are some of the characteristics, maybe 2 or 3, that you're going to deliberately cultivate in preparing them?
So from the moment both my kids were born, I've had a mantra. So every morning and every night I say to them, you're beautiful and cute, you're smart and intelligent, you're someone in the world that you're going to have a lot of like wealth and happiness. You have a lot of talent. You're going to change the world for the better. You're awesome and everybody loves you. You're healthy. You're funny. You're brave, and mommy and daddy will always love you, will always believe in you, and will always support you, and never, never, ever stop being curious. And so when my kids fail, I celebrate it. When my kids succeed, I celebrate it. So in my family, they know that, they climb the table and they fall, as long as they're not bleeding and it's not something any major, I know how to stop them from crying within a minute, and then they'll climb back on the table and they'll look at me like, is it okay? I'm like, you need to be responsible for that. Like, so just be careful. And like, I'll let you make the choice, but I allow them to fail. So, when they decorate my wall, I laugh and go, oh, NFTs, as opposed to like screaming, oh my God, the wall and stuff like that. And so I think that dynamic, and because my wife comes with the behavior therapist, she does more of the singing and the Google Gaga. I treat my kids as adults. And so there's a level where I have those conversations where I allow them to explore and I allow them to try things, and I encourage them to fail for the sake of not being afraid to try and for understanding that there's a lesson from it and you can grow and you can come better. And they see me because I've struggled with my business. They see me, but they know that when I'm with them, I'm with them. But when I need to do business, they respect it because I communicate that with them. And it's a conversation that's not just, oh, okay, oopsie kind of thing. It's an ongoing thing. So even when my wife and I have an argument, they see that we argue, but they see the love between us afterwards, and they see that, okay, we argue, but we're back together and everybody's happy and everything is that. So that those values and those are ingrained in them, that, you fight for what you believe in, you fight in for it. And so there are things like when my kids are going to be 8 years old, they're going to open their first business, and I don't care if the business fails. I want them to at least be present to it and be aware of it. So
Right,
things
Jeff,
like that.
Awesome. I'm going to hit you with a couple rapid fire questions.
Sure.
What is a gift? Suspend reality, suspend finances, suspend time and space. What's a gift you would give to every father on the planet?
I think the gift that I would say is, take the time to create those memories with your kids, especially when they're younger, because as they become teenagers and become this, if you didn't do it when they were younger, they'll dismiss you when they're older. I think that's the key thing I can say. Like, take those moments, like, pick them up, go for ice cream, laugh with them, spend the time to ask them questions, to be engaged in their life. I think that is such a huge thing that's missing in many aspects, because you have a lot of parents who are working 2-3 jobs, they never see their kids, and so kids have nobody that's giving them standards, no one that's guiding them for it.
So, fictional or real, who is a father character that you admire?
I've always admired my father. He was very streetwise, was a civil engineer for 45 years, often sacrificed some of his own happiness to provide for the family, and I admire and respect him for that. Again, I think for me, it's just fathers that are involved, fathers that are engaged, and that, it's not business. It's like, oh, my daughter has a recital. There is no business when my daughter has a recital. My kids want to go to a water park, or obviously kids, like area of what do you call it, theme park or roller coaster park, like spend that time with them, get those memories with them, because that's the foundation of everything else.
When in your life do you feel the most love?
I get love from my family all the time. I would say that, I'm blessed that my wife is very supportive of me needing time to do my business, but also, I'm very involved with sorry, just 1 second. Very involved with kind of kids. Sorry about that. People here.
No problem.
Being involved with kind of kids' activities, being involved with, checking in with them, because nowadays, like my daughter's 4 years old, there was somebody at daycare, a teacher that you really love, that stopped working there, and so it's like, oh, why are you angry now? And check in on that, and check in, make sure that they're okay.
All right. Before I ask you the last question, tell anybody listening where they can find you: website, social media, LinkedIn.
So, josefstetter.com, Josef Stetter on LinkedIn. If they type in Josef Stetter, resume whisperer, corporate culturist, I'm not that hard to find, kind of thing.
Find you. All right. Well, assuming this recording lasts in perpetuity and generations of Stetters get to listen to it, what's an evergreen message that you would share with the generations of your family moving forward?
I would say find your passion, find your purpose, and then find people that can help you get there. If it's not me as their dad, find mentors that can and can teach you. I know what my limitations are, and I respect that, but I have 5 mentors in my life right now And I'm a very, very big believer in, I've had this conversation with my wife that, I don't need my kids to get straight A's for the sake of getting straight A's. Like if my kid says to me, you know what, I hate, let's say, geography right now, great. Earn the credit, but show me that the subjects that you care about, you put everything into them, because I will support whatever vision or dream you have of it, but understand that don't do it half-assed kind of thing, and don't be afraid to take risks, and don't be afraid to fail, because even if you didn't get it the first time, the second time, the third time, you'll get there. I got married only 5 years ago. I'll be 47 at the end of the summer, so I started a family late, and it took me a very long time to meet the right one for me and there. So, but you keep trying, and every time you have an experience, you learn something, and you become a better person because of it.